He was from Manhattan.
I'm having a brain fart today. I can't find my words. Once we go to the main school board and out. Here we go.
All right, are we ready, board? I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Conestoga Valley School Board here on October 24th, 2020. Notice that all are in attendance except for Ms. Reed. If you could all please join me with the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to all those in the room and any in some of the rooms throughout the building and online, if there are those watching online again. Board, I need a motion to approve our agenda for tonight.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. Board, do we have any comments tonight? If not, again, this is our first time in our meeting for public comments. This is time for the public to come. Remember we need your name and address, and you'll have about 3 to 5 minutes to share your thoughts. And board, remember again, this is strictly for us to receive comments. So we'll take comments from the public now. Tara, you can go first. Yeah.
I really need to be taller for this. All right, so I stand here before you. My name is Tara Flick, for those who are listening. I am a teacher at the high school, a biology teacher. I am also president of the Conestoga Valley Education Association. I appreciate you giving me time again to speak with you. Originally, I had hoped that you would be able to hear from a few teachers who could better explain how the hybrid model would have been implemented and what it would look like at various grade levels. Mr. Searcher informed me that only I would be able to speak to you tonight, so you are stuck with me yet again. Earlier today, I emailed you the information and comments you would have heard from those teachers, and I gave you a hard copy today as well. Much has been discussed regarding the American Academy of Pediatrics, or AAP, recommendations for reopening schools. Nobody is debating the many critical roles that public education has, including promoting physical, mental, and emotional health of children. However, back on July 10th, and again more recently, the AAP posted on August 19th the following, and I quote, "The AAP strongly advocates that all policy considerations for the coming school year should start with a goal of having students physically present in school. Unfortunately, in many parts of the United States, there is currently uncontrolled spread of SARS-CoV-2. Although the AAP strongly advocates for in-person learning for the coming school year, the current widespread circulation of the virus will not permit in-person learning to be safely accomplished in many jurisdictions. To further that point, the following groups issued a joint statement: the AAP, the American Federation of Teachers, the National Education Association, and the School Superintendents Association. That joint statement read in part, "Returning to school is important for the healthy development and well-being of children, but we must pursue reopening in a way that is safe for all students, teachers, and staff. Science should drive decision-making on safely reopening schools. Public health agencies must make recommendations based on evidence, not politics. We should leave it to the health experts to tell us when the time is best to open up school buildings and listen to educators and administrators to shape how we do it. So, I stand here again. We continue to ask you to follow the science and PDE guidelines. Last Tuesday, faculty and staff virtually attended a professional development session organized by our district with Dr. Vito DiCamillo from Penn Medicine. He emphasized the importance of wearing masks and reiterated the necessity of having 6 feet of social distance between students. I believe the session was recorded, and I suggest that you watch it. Please follow the medical advice given on Tuesday by Dr. Vito DiCamillo from Penn Medicine. On the science front, there is some good news. For the past 2 weeks, Lancaster County's percent PCR positivity has dropped below 5% and is currently at 3.6%. Our incident rate has also dropped and is at 43 per 100,000 people. Even with this good news, Lancaster is still considered in the moderate risk category for transmission of COVID, and according to PDE guidelines, schools should be using a hybrid or fully virtual model. We ask again that you will we ask you to again follow the science. If Lancaster County moves into a low-risk category, which I know we are all hoping for, then we would all fully support having kids fully return in person. I do want to emphasize the key components of a hybrid model. Obviously, in a hybrid model, we can come closer to achieving that 6-foot social distancing. The AAP recommends, and I quote, "Desks should be placed at least 3 feet apart and ideally 6 feet apart when feasible." To be clear, many of our classrooms are lucky if they can get 1 to 2 feet between students, since we have many classes that have over 25 students in them. The hybrid model will create smaller cohorts. This will reduce the size of any potential outbreaks and make contact tracing more efficient. We feel a hybrid model offers the vital in-person teaching and prioritizes safety. We also think it will help keep us teaching in person longer into the school year. If we go back fully in person, outbreaks will be larger, and we could very quickly be looking at having to go fully virtual. I think we can all agree that we want to avoid that. You've expressed concern about the at-home instruction if we would use a hybrid model. If you took a moment to read the information emailed to you, you can see that as teachers, we will make that time valuable and relevant. We can flip our classrooms and tape our direct instruction for students to watch. They would have the ability to rewind and watch parts over if they needed to. We can set up independent work, collaborative projects, practice, and more. I promise you that it will not look like last spring. We are better prepared. And of course, we still will see our kids in person and can address their needs and their learning. Another positive aspect of the hybrid model is that we will be reducing class sizes, not only to achieve better social distancing, but we will also be able to provide more one-to-one instruction with each student. So even though we may have less time in school, students will actually get more individualized attention because we will just simply have fewer with us. Please look at Brian Bogart's description of the invaluable one-on-one time in the materials that I sent you. I want to switch gears to the proposal that you approved last week, which included a real-time virtual possibility at the high school. This option was promoted as a way to offer classes that CVVA does not currently have and to help reduce class sizes in the building. Unfortunately, real-time virtual is a real-time mess. Only 212 students picked real-time virtual. Of those, only 76 are completely real-time virtual. So in reality, most classes will have very few real-time students, if any. We already have CVVA classes built into teacher schedules. Adding yet another option to this is just muddying the water worse than it already is. Please let me explain what I mean. Imagine a class of 25 students and one decides to go real-time virtual. This means the teacher must now teach in 2 completely different instructional modalities. They will teach 24 students in person and at the same time have to teach the 1 student that's sitting at home in this real-time virtual land. Quite honestly, this is ridiculous. We can be incredible teachers in person, and we can be wonderful teachers if we have to go fully virtual. But to do both well at the same time is next to impossible. In-person learning cannot compare to real-time virtual. What is a real-time virtual student supposed to do when students in class are doing a lab or an activity? How are teachers going to manage both sets of students, again, at the same time? Even if a teacher can find an alternative to the activity or lab, will it be the same? Quality? Will it look the same? As I mentioned earlier, we already have teachers who have a period built into their schedule devoted to teaching CVVA courses. If students choose to learn virtually, then they should pick from those courses already offered. Although we do eventually want to increase the diversity of courses offered in CVVA, I suggest to you that now is not the time. To ask teachers to take on this additional role during this crisis is just simply asking too much. From a biologist, this is the perfect example of a cost-benefit relationship where the costs far outweigh any benefits. You are asking teachers to walk into a petri dish, as I've mentioned before, and that petri dish is starting to feel like a pressure cooker. And now, if you agree to continue with the real-time virtual plan at the high school, you are adding to that pressure. We will do as you tell us to do, as you ask us to do. But it breaks our hearts knowing that we will be put in a position where we will have to offer a less than robust version of our in-person classes. Simply stated, a real-time virtual class will be of lower quality than the same class in person. I encourage you to read in the comments by Gwen Callahan, who is a master teacher. She started in my cohort many years ago, starting our 24th year together. I believe some of you have children that had Gwen Callahan as their math teacher. And she says it better than I could in terms of what real-time virtual looks like if you're trying to teach a math class. If you're wondering why I'm not mentioning the middle school, it is because of their schedule and Mr. Quirk's flexibility and originality. He rearranged teachers' schedules so that they are teaching their real-time virtual class in a period where they don't have in-person students. They're just teaching all of their virtual students at one time. That's different. Finally, I know that PDE describes face coverings as cloth masks that include face shields. However, as I've mentioned before, the CDC and our own Penn Medicine cohort and task force both very clearly state that face shields are not substitutes for cloth masks. Face shields should be worn in addition to masks unless there is a medical or instructional reason to not do so. For example, students who learn English as a second language or go to a speech pathologist, or perhaps very young children who are learning to pronounce certain letters. There may be moments in a classroom where a face shield is appropriate, but we have to really emphasize cloth masks are necessary. Also, in case you're interested, the latest study out of Duke University found that neck gaiters, which are gaining popularity, offer almost no protection whatsoever, almost to the point where you might as well not even bother wearing them. So I ask you to not allow neck gaiters to be worn as masks, and to please consider updating your criteria to reflect the science and keep us safe. Again, I appreciate you giving me the time to speak tonight. I know it's unusual circumstances, and I am hoping that you consider and prioritize the safety and well-being of our students, faculty, and staff.
Thank you, Tara. Yes, sir. Yep, you can come right there, that's fine. And your, again, your name and address and...
Hi. Can you hear me? Or? Okay. Hi, I'm Augie Gerges. My address is 76 Ridgeview Drive, Leola. And I came last week and I was really so disappointed because the school stopped March 15 and here we are, August, and I didn't see any kind of plans as I was expecting. So I'm really disappointed with you guys 5 months ago. Yeah, I really don't know. You should have plan A and B and C and move as we go, yes, but you should have multiple or different scenarios as the time come close, not here we are now. We didn't have any kind of plans. I saw the survey and I did choose the second scenario, which it's a combination or blended. I guess I'm okay with that, except I didn't know how the reality going to be. What I mean by that, so I have a lot of questions. I'm gonna really go through them quickly because I'm not really happy in general. So my first question to you as the superintendent, are you gonna follow the CDC guidelines? So the first question for you is the mask. Is gonna be a required, so you're gonna put a sign outside and also on the bus, no mask, no ride, the same as the public school? So this is one question I'd like to hear the answer from you. Two, when the students come in and go into the bus or come into school, are you gonna check the temperature for them or not? The distance, how are you gonna keep the 6 feet, the minimum, in the class, hallway, cafeteria, in the bus? I really don't know how you're gonna do that in bus. To be like really realistically, it's not gonna happen. I gotta tell you that. So my next question for you, what do you have in your mind to keep the school open all along the whole year? Or you plan to open for a week and then you shut down? So you need to have a plan B, what you're gonna do with the students through these 2 weeks when you shut down. Because you can have positive, there's no question about that. There's no magic. Somehow, you may think. How are you gonna do the washing hand? Are you gonna, every class, you're gonna take 15 minutes break to let each student wash his or her hand? It's just not gonna happen. Cafeteria, the same. Distance, classes. So my recommendation to you, if you're gonna have blended plan, which I don't know if it's gonna happen or not, break, have 2 days for 1 week for 2 grades, and then 3 days for the other 2 grades, and then rotate them as you go. Maybe can help. So you only have half school in, half out to help you with the distance and be able to manage. I don't know if this logistically from the teacher gonna work or not. I don't know about the cleaning situation. How are you gonna clean up the class after this class finish? Because you need to clean and wipe everything. I'm not sure the teacher's gonna do that. It's impossible. It's too much on them, I think. So I don't know how we're gonna rotate cleaning every class, especially in person. The same with air filter and all of that. It's just logistically, it's not gonna happen in the school. I personally, I have a logbook. I make it for my own home. This is how crazy I am. And I document everything. But anyway, it's not gonna happen for public school. And then how are we gonna track when a student tests positive? It's just hard, logic, common sense to track when students, because you're gonna get the result after 1 month. So I'm gonna let the teacher who contact with this person and the students in home for 2 weeks. And if you're gonna do that, do you have a plan for the students to catch up what they're gonna miss? I hope I hear some answer from you. My last question, you guys about 9, 10 board, 3 wearing mask and the rest no. 4 wearing mask and the rest no. Why is that? You should have some kind of respect for everybody. This is the CD line. If you're not following the CD line, don't serve. You can do whatever you want in your own home, your own job. not here, should respect everyone's health. Not coming last week and this week, not wearing mask is just not right. Thank you.
Okay, and I say my name and my address? Okay. Hi, my name is Laura Cody. I am at 166 Crest Avenue. I am a 2011 graduate of Conestoga Valley, and I am embarrassed that my former teachers have to go through all of this to protect their safety and the safety of the children. I am even more embarrassed that my former teachers are not being given a voice through all of this. The school board and the district are putting absolutely everyone, including themselves, the children, and the community members at the highest possible risk by sending all students back full-time. These teachers want nothing more than to do their best job to the best of their ability, but not at the risk of the children. A hybrid model allows for better social distancing and smaller groups. Smaller groups of students also slows the spread of the disease. With there being very few answers surrounding the long-term effects of this disease, I can't imagine why anyone wouldn't want to take the steps to minimize the spread. Why are we risking something that could cause lifelong detriments to our students and our teachers? With my experience in environment, health, and safety at a government research facility, my first question is centered around disinfection. I hope you have an extremely robust plan and all janitorial staff have been thoroughly trained. I also hope you have a backup in place when you can no longer get a hold of disinfecting materials in a few months. As Mrs. Flick said earlier, this should be a 100% science-based decision. Let's make the right choice today and transition to a hybrid model now before you're forced to do so in the next few months with inadequate preparation.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nathan Hangst. I live at 18 Wolf Circle in Brownstown. I have a son. He's going to Brownstown Elementary, 3rd grade. And me and my wife both work full-time jobs. And, you know, my son, you know, he needs to go to school. That's the way I feel. I don't know how the hybrid model is working for elementary school, but I could see how it could work for high school and middle school. You know, some of those kids can stay home by themselves. But, you know, I work 50 to 60 hours a week. My wife, she works 50 hours a week. And, you know, we make ends meet, but, you know, things are tight. And childcare over the summer, you know, I send my son to summer camp. It costs a lot of money, you know, and he went to summer camp all summer, had no issues. And, you know, I think I'm speaking for a lot of families that probably aren't here, that, you know, a hybrid at elementary school level, I think, you know, it's going to be a financial thing for a lot of families. And, you know, some families probably can't afford childcare. You know, they expect their kids to go to school. And, you know, I'm hoping my son gets to go to school. I don't think a hybrid's going to work for my son. Full-time is really what we would like to see. And, you know, I had a couple more things, but that's what we want. Full-time. I think you guys can do a good job at keeping our students safe. So that's what I would like to see. Because if one of us got to stay home, we might lose a job. You know, we're expected to be at work all the time. I got to be there at least 40 hours. And I got to work overtime to pay my bills. So sending my son to school every year, that's what we need. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Wait to see if Mike has any more.
Mr. Thornton, anybody else back there?
All right. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Z, going into your superintendent's report, do you have any comments?
Yes, Mr. President. Let me get it. There are only a few items there on the superintendent's report. One is a new hire, a long-term sub at the middle school. We do have some confidential leaves as listed in the exec session. And then the Act 86, those are the student teachers that are allowed to teach with us as a substitute, and there is one there from Millersville University. So we're asking for your approval on the superintendent's report, please.
Okay. Board, I will take a motion to approve the superintendent's report.
I move we approve the superintendent's report as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, Dr. Z. I'll let you continue.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, in last week's board meeting, we were asked to take a look at the elementary numbers across the district. The administrative team, along with teachers, has done just that. But I would like to first, before I start into that part of it, is talk about what was briefly mentioned today. We do have a Penn Medicine LGH consortium, and by we, I mean the 16 school districts within Lancaster County. Lancaster County does not have a county health organization, so the districts in partnership with Penn Medicine LGH has formed a cohort where Penn Medicine will provide updated information, provide professional development opportunities, give us decision trees, and also act as a medical liaison should we have any questions. One of the questions that has been asked is, what happens when we have a COVID positive? And if you are COVID positive, immediately you have to isolate. Isolate means stay away from anyone else. Isolation talks about a student or an adult who is COVID positive. And that is for a minimum of 10 days from the start of symptoms. And the improved symptoms without a fever, that means you cannot take any fever-reducing medicine during that time for at least 24 hours prior to release from isolation. If you're asymptomatic, meaning you have no symptoms, then isolation is 10 days from the date of the test. And you may return to school after the isolation time, as described above, has been completed. Now, if you are in close contact, and close contact is defined as within 6 feet for 15 minutes of an individual who has been confirmed COVID positive, you must stay home in quarantine for a minimum of 14 days from that contact and monitor for symptoms. If you remain asymptomatic, you do not have any symptoms, continue to complete the 14-day quarantine before you're allowed back to school. If you do become symptomatic, you must get a COVID test through your primary care physician. If that test is positive, you've got to follow the positive protocol, and if negative, you follow the asymptomatic quarantine protocol, which is the 14 days. Now, sometimes it's not necessarily just your friend that you were in school with, but maybe a member of your household. So if the COVID positive person is a brother or sister and they can be isolated, then you can quarantine for 14 days and monitor for any symptoms. So you've got to stay away from that COVID positive family member. If you cannot be isolated, if that COVID positive member cannot be isolated, you've got to quarantine for 14 days after the positive person is released from isolation. So that could be up to 24 days. If you do become symptomatic, as before, please get tested and follow the established protocol. Now, what's going to happen if we get a positive case in the school? We will be notified by the Department of Health, and we will assist the Department of Health in providing contact tracing information. Department of Health will notify the close contacts following their protocol. So if you do get a phone call from Department of Health, please answer the phone. If it's a number you don't recognize, please say hello. The identity of the individual with COVID-19 is confidential, but we will work with Department of Health and Penn Medicine to establish communication protocols on how to announce the positive test within the district. Question was brought up about cleaning protocol, and we do have supply kits I'll show you here in a second, but the custodial staff have been assigned to ensure that the high touch points are cleaned twice daily. That's after the students arrived in the morning and after the lunch cycle in the afternoon. Other surfaces will be cleaned each school day during the overnight hours. As an additional measure, each classroom has been outfitted with a cleaning supply kit. It's a very simple kit. It's basically a pop-up wipes that have CDC-approved cleaning product in it, also a hand sanitizer. It is a refillable bottle of hand sanitizer, so at the end of the day, the custodians will be checking to make sure that both the bucket of wipes and the hand sanitizer is refilled. There are protocols for wiping the surfaces. It talks about letting sit for 10 minutes. So the students, the last 5 minutes and maybe the 4 minutes in passing time, the teachers and the building principals will be working out when and how that product will be applied. What we've done at the elementary school, as we mentioned earlier, is a cohort model where we either have self-contained classrooms, or if teachers are teaching subject-specific classes, the teachers themselves are moving, not the students. This past week, we also provided face masks and face shields to all of our professional and support staff. I think you may have a sample at your desk of the masks. I'd now like to get into the elementary options. The current plan approved options are full day in person 5 days a week, and currently we have 1,787 students choosing that option, or else you can go full-time remote through our CV Virtual Academy. We currently have 301 students choosing that option, where normally we have around 40. Dr. Mann had made the comment before that the 40 usually pick that option because that's the option they want. They want CVVA for the educational component. So we believe the other 260 are not necessarily because they believe CVVA is a better educational option, but one where they do not have to come into the schools. These numbers are accurate as of Friday. There have been some changes, obviously, some additions, some withdrawals throughout the weekend and even today. Here's the impact of the elementary CVVA students. This is the number per grade level per building. I'll just leave that up there for a minute so you can take a look at it while I get a drink of water. You'll see Fritz has the highest number, but of course Fritz is also the largest building. So what is the impact on CVVA students at each of the individual buildings? Let's start first with Brownstown. These are average class sizes per grade level. The first column is without removing CVVA students. So if all students were in Brownstown, no one taking the virtual option, the average class size for kindergarten would be 19.6 students, 24 for first grade, et cetera, down the column. If we decided that we take out CVVA and leave the teachers in the classrooms, the numbers in the middle column reflect a drop at kindergarten from 19.6 to 17.3. Discussion happened last week where we said if we take a teacher out of a classroom, one teacher per building, that all class sizes would go up. What actually happens is the class size where the teacher was taken out of would go up. The other six grade levels would remain the same. So in Brownstown, we would look at removing the third grade teacher to teach virtual And you can see that the class size now jumps up to 22.7. Likewise, the impact on Fritz, the teacher being taken out would be out of the second grade classroom, and that number would jump up from 16.4 to 20.5. All other grade levels remain the same, with students being taken out to attend CVVA. Leola's next, and again, the 3 columns. The first one is if everyone was in attendance. The second one, if CV students were taken out and no teachers were reassigned to CVVA. In the third column, the Leola teacher who would be reassigned to CVVA would be the kindergarten teacher. And as you can see, that number jumps up to 18.5. And finally, the impact on Smoketown, same columns, and the grade level where the teacher would be taken out of would be third grade, and that number jumps up to 20.3. So the impact of CVVA on class size, it does reduce the elementary in-person numbers by 14.4% across the board. Brownstown has a 13.2% reduction in the number of students in Brownstown. Fritz has a 16% reduction attending Fritz, 14.7 for Leola and 13.2 for Smoketown. The class size reduction per grade and per building varies, as I mentioned on the previous slides. As a board, you're also responsible for the fiscal responsibility of our district, so it was important that I gave you the financial impact of CVVA as well. The cost per student for CVVA is $2,040. Dr. Mann brought a large cart, which you'll see when you're either coming in or out of the auditorium, that is full of supplies, materials, and equipment that each student is sent to his or her home. Those materials are $2,040. We have 301 students attending CVVA, so that will cost us $614,040. Now, we talked about a couple options when I went through those numbers, leaving the classroom teachers in their buildings or removing one per building. If we leave all classroom teachers in their buildings, we would need to hire 5 one-year teachers. And I have one-year teachers there because I've been in discussion with Ms. Flick regarding we cannot have a long-term sub in an open position, but we have worked out an agreement in principle that we can have a one-year teacher for that position. So we would need to hire 5 one-year teachers plus 1 K-12 teacher for the 6th grade, which in the virtual K-12 curriculum is a middle school curriculum. So looking at a bachelor step 1 teacher with benefits would be $77,243. 5 of those would be $386,215. The K-12 teacher would be $67,500. So the total additional teacher cost would be $453,715. Add that teacher cost with the materials cost, it's $1,067,755. We currently have budgeted for CVVA roughly $250,000. Looking at some other CVVA options, I had mentioned moving the 4 teachers, 1 per building, to cover the CVVA numbers. Now, this is in addition to 3 part-time reading and math support teachers and a full-time paraprofessional, which would be included whether we move a teacher from the building or hire all new teachers. The impact of moving I highlighted already when I went through the numbers on the original slides. And again, all other grades other than those classes that are being proposed to be moved, 84% of the building would remain the same. The other impact is financial. That reduces the need to hire 4 new teachers, which would be $308,972. Those were just the CVVA options that we had, because that is the plan as it stands right now. So we looked at other options to consider. We talked about overlaying a hybrid and AM/PM schedule. We looked at AB at the elementary, but AM/PM allowed every child to be seen by the teacher every day, and putting that on top of the full-time in-person option, or offering a real-time virtual option in addition to the CVVA option. Let me first talk about overlaying the hybrid AM/PM model. Some of the positives, it definitely gives parents a choice. There is a potential reduction in class size, and as I mentioned, you would see every child every day in person. There are some grave concerns with this, though. You're basically coordinating 3 classes within the one class. You have your full-time in-person group, you have your morning group, and then your PM group. And you want to make sure that your morning group receives the same opportunities as your full-time in-person. So they'll be with you half-time, but we're still looking at trying to provide equal or equitable curriculum to both groups, all 3 groups actually. So there is the potential that less curriculum will be taught to all students. At this late time, it's definitely a lack of preparation time for parents. If we made the decision, if the board made the decision to go to an AM/PM, daycare, transportation, any number of issues would pop up. And there's definitely more responsibility on parents and guardians to facilitate instruction during the other half of the day. Now, this is true for any virtual model. There is especially at the elementary level, an expectations that would have to be set with the parents, the teachers, and the students. And we're not sure that a possible reduction would be worth the disruption for this AM/PM overlaying hybrid model. The next option would be a real-time virtual model. It's been spoken about already at the high school and the middle school, where teachers would instruct students virtually real-time throughout the day. Some of the positives, a smoother transition between virtual and in-person. It is a CV curriculum, not the K-12 curriculum. It will reduce the cost per student who leaves CVVA by $2,040. So given that the average CVVA enrollment is around 40, even if 200 of the 300 opted for real-time virtual, there could be a realization of cost of $408,000. There is a potential reduction in the number of new teachers to be hired as well. However, there are some serious concerns. Unlike the secondary, there is no rigid bell course schedule. And looking at the numbers, we cannot have a schedule similar to the middle school where it could be set aside in each building. We would be able to do it as a district, but not as a building. We would probably pull most students from CVVA and not building classrooms, thereby the reduction in class size will probably not be realized. The question then becomes who teaches the class. If we use a pull-out model, there's no change from CVVA other than the cost of the program. Now, if we have a pull-out model and there's one teacher teaching 4th grade, he or she will have to coordinate with the 4 elementary schools at that grade level to make sure that the instruction is commensurate across the district. Now, if students are distributed across the grade levels within the building, each teacher would have between 1 and 5 virtual students in their classroom, averaging just over 3 students per classroom. So in your class of 21, 18 of them would be in front of you, and 3 of them would be virtual. The difficulty in those situations is the fluidity of instruction between the subject areas. You would have to really coordinate very strictly with the parents to make sure that those students who are at home understand their responsibility to be there in person for any one-to-one or small group instruction. So regardless of any virtual model selected, as I said, there has to be clear expectations for teachers, students, and parents. Without parental support, any virtual model will not be successful. There will be a commitment, no matter which virtual model, at K-12 for 1 marking period. So if you sign up for CVVA, it's for 1 marking period at least. If you sign up for a real-time virtual model, it's for at least 1 marking period. As a side note, our non-CV cyber charter enrollment has increased from 45 to 61, resulting in a net increase of $2,014, $608. That is a K-12 cyber charter increase. So I just want to say thank you to the building administration, to Dr. Cartwright and Dr. Mann and Ms. Schaefer, and the teachers that have provided input on those different options that we were looking at. So the current plan, as mentioned, is in-person 5 days a week with the CV Virtual Academy. Options we can add to keep the current plan, but keep teachers in their original classrooms and hire additional teachers, thereby reducing the number across each building without exception, so that each grade level is reduced. The second option is to move one teacher per building to support CVVA. And as mentioned in the first few slides, each one of those buildings, the grade that was pulled becomes the highest number of students at that grade level across the district. The other option, current plan plus offering real-time virtual option, depending on the numbers, either a pull-out model or distributing students across the grade level. And then the final one was overlaying the AM/PM model over the current plan. So our recommendation is keep the current plan, keeping teachers in the original classrooms. This not only keeps the numbers lower, we also have a number of faculty who are in situations where virtual would be the best option for them as well. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. President, for any questions or comments.
All right, excuse me. All right, board, any questions, comments for Dr. Z? Or for any of the administration as a matter that's been helping to plan and put these things together? At least for our review, put it that way. Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. President, I just have a question for either Sally or Kelly. What was, when you guys were going through all this and getting the numbers and everything, what was your feedback? What did you get from parents and staff? And what was your gist when you, it doesn't matter, I was just.
I would say the feedback has been mixed from the staff. There are definitely people who have not wanted the real time for the reasons and concerns that Dr. Z mentioned. It is very difficult to manage all of that within the classroom. And we also do not know at this point what the actual number of students of interest would be. So we're speaking in a lot of hypotheticals. It could be that, we would have kids who come back. We could potentially have a larger number of students that teachers are needing to manage. And so, that creates a lot of complexity, and with 1 week till school starts, it's hard to manage that. From parents, I have had no parents at any point ask me for an additional option. None expressing any concerns about the two options that we have on the table, not one. That I can only speak to Smoketown, but I have had not one parent call me about that, or email in any form. Either of you?
Is that the same for Dr. Graybill, and did you have is that what?
I think there's a range of emotions.
Sorry, I was just trying to get.
I think it's fairly well, it's given that our community is somewhat divided. Teachers feel the same way. I think the teachers are willing to do whatever it takes, so if a real-time option was what was necessary, I agree with Dr. Brenneman, who said that, it's a bit of a hypothetical. We don't know how many people would be impacted by offering that kind of an option. I think most teachers felt like overlaying an additional option on top of the other two that we have would be extremely challenging, extremely overwhelming. And at the end of the day, any of those options seem to still keep the numbers at the high teens, low 20s. And so I think the board has a difficult decision to make tonight.
I'd like to follow up on that, as you mentioned, the class size numbers, and that's where my wheelhouse just keeps going. So where are we in regards to our ability to social distance in the classrooms themselves? Like, I recognize that it may be different across buildings, but what's the pulse of that across the district?
I can speak for Brownstown. I mean, we just got brand new furniture we're excited about, and honestly, when we were ordering furniture 6 months ago, we were thinking of collaborative spaces and open walls and all kinds of stuff. So we're thinking creatively, and teachers are working hard to social distance. I can't guarantee 3 to 6 feet. Brownstown 6th grade has modulars, and I don't want to lose any family. We've got some awesome, amazing families that just don't feel comfortable right now. They're choosing CVVA. I look forward to the day when they can come back, but 6th grade is one area where I didn't lose a lot of people. I think they probably think my kid's been through Brownstown and want to stay in 6th grade and end that year, but I'm at 26 kids in a modular in those classrooms, and the teachers are doing their best. They've been taking out couches and those kinds of things, but we're working hard not to have them facing across from each other. They'll be masked, sitting a few feet away. Teachers are redesigning and thinking about their classroom, almost teaching as if they were virtual, so there's not a lot of collaboration, more independent. But I'm not going to lie, it's going to be a challenge. That's Brownstown.
Fritz normally has about 700 students, and based on the numbers that I'm looking at, we're down below 550. And so we have not only the 100 and so students that are listed there, but probably some other ones. We have updated, we had back to school nights outside, and anybody that didn't come to back to school nights, I had my teachers call them and follow up. So our paperwork officially is a little bit behind, but we have more students going. We also have lost a couple of students to homeschooling, other cyber, St. Anne's, things like that. My teachers are really worried that the kids would come back because we don't, by our calculations, have anybody over 20. Right now, even 6th grade, our numbers are that they're at 19 and 20, a little different than, and Dr. Z and I talked a little bit about this today. If CVVA doesn't work out and 2 weeks into school, all of a sudden, a bunch of kids come back, that would put numbers up very, very high. So they're very worried about, yes, maybe we can do it now, but what would the future hold?
And that's where we're looking at the one marking period as a minimum that you have to stay with CVVA.
Dr. Pavlovic is not here tonight, so I want to talk about Loyola a little bit. The Loyola kindergarten rooms are long and narrow. Some of you have been in them and might remember how very small they are. Right now, they are fitting about 16 desks in with some space. I won't say that I know how many feet are between each desk, but if they get a few more kids in those kindergarten classes, they will not be able to space them out very well. And I saw a 2nd grade classroom last week, same situation. Brian Bogart had those desks perfectly spaced for the number of students he had last week. They showed me if they had to move rows and get them closer together, how much tighter it would be. So there are true challenges with space in some of our rooms. Not all of our rooms are real big.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other comments, board? Questions?
I have a question about what happens to the education of the child who is in quarantine or isolation for 10 to 28 days. They're not signing up for CVVA for that short period of time. If there's no real-time virtual, what's going on there?
I am of the opinion that we will have to go real-time virtual for those students when that time comes. And we have ordered the equipment, we just don't have it yet, and I think we'll have to learn to use it real quickly and start doing that.
To piggyback a little bit on that, the teachers have been working very hard at the elementary with Schoology and Seesaw with plans to, from the very, very beginning, teach using those platforms. Their hope is to build relationships with the time that they have, if that should be cut short, so that if they do go to a real-time virtual, those relationship foundations will have been established so they can continue to build on them in a real-time virtual experience.
Go
Can
ahead.
I ask about those two small classrooms you have? Couldn't you move that classroom into the library? Or some other space to give, if you have a really tight space like you talked about at Brownstown?
We don't have a lot of extra spaces in our buildings to move classrooms, and we're talking about 3 kindergarten classrooms at Leola, so to move one of them into the library would not help the other 2.
Well, there's the gym.
And there are also library classes and phys ed classes going on every day of the week, all day
Well, I
long,
understand.
too.
I was just thinking that, sometimes you have to change what you have to change.
Right. Well, the phys ed teachers are planning to take kids outside as much as they can. That's certainly one change they're making already. That would be a real challenge, to move 3 sections of a grade level to different spaces. 1, doable. 3 might be a little more challenging.
We live with more challenging today.
Yes.
Anything else, board? Because what I tend to hear from listening is that overlaying anything other than the options that we have already set forth creates additional, adds some concerns, adds some possible frustrations. And so I don't know, board, unless I hear anything different, I'm almost inclined to recommend that we continue on with the 2 options that we have set forth before us already, and move on to talk about how we're going to help, if it's staffing and those kinds of things. Comments from the board, please.
I'm not completely willing to let the real-time virtual die at the elementary. I realize it's a challenge for all teachers, but I worry about the kids who maybe mom has a positive diagnosis and can't come to school for 28 days. And that teacher is going to wait until then to learn how to do it. I think that it's going to be something we're going to see, and why not start sooner rather than later?
I think it's, board members could speak into the mic. The board could speak into the mic.
Okay, board, use your mics better when you speak, please. Response to Dana's comments, board.
I think that's definitely a real concern. We have to make sure that when kids are in some type of quarantine, that they are still being taught well. And so I would agree with Dana, we need to make sure that there is a robust teaching model for that. And if that's real-time virtual, then that needs to be what it is. But we can't allow them to fall behind during that 14 or 24 days.
Agreed.
I think, there we go. I feel like from my teaching background, it would be really challenging to do virtual in an elementary school. Middle school and high school, I know teachers that are going to be doing it next week. I'm married to one of them, and it's going to be a challenge, but I think it's a little bit easier for the older grades. And I'm also doing it at the college level, and it's not going to be easy. But I think I would like to maybe hear more information about what the teachers are doing now as far as using the Seesaw pieces and the Schoology pieces in preparation for having to teach a student virtually if it comes down to that at some point. So can you talk a little bit more about what they're doing to kind of prepare now for that, like some more details?
So as part of, first of all, our teachers would never, ever just let a student sit home for 28 days and do nothing. That's absolutely not at all in their makeup. They've never done that before when a kid is out for, whether it's like a broken arm or a surgery or mono or things like that. We always have kids coming and going at the elementary level. That's not unusual. So I just wanted to say that first. Second of all, the instructional model that we're looking at is a certain number of minutes, so 5 hours total of instructional minutes, which is very, very different than what we did in the spring in terms of the amount of rigor that they would have. 1 hour per subject area, ELA, math, working in specials, science, social studies. We use the rotational model. At Fritz, I can speak to the fact that almost all of our teachers at the intermediate level have gone through the rotational model training, and you guys have talked about that in the last couple of board meetings where there's groups that the instruction is direct, there's independent stations, collaborative stations, there's flipped classrooms, videos. They've pre-taped themselves teaching different types of Hegarty activities or foundations activities. So all of those types of things would be in place for the students to see themselves communicating virtually and then giving some type of feedback. Seesaw allows you to grade, submit assignments, provide virtual feedback, provide real-time feedback, communicate with the parents, have the parents get back in contact with you, and use all of the technology programs that we use currently, like BrainPop or Epic or even our databases for checking out books. So it's like Schoology, but at a primary level that allows all the type of interaction. I teach at Millersville as an adjunct professor, and I like Seesaw better than the platform that I use for Millersville because the amount of interaction that it allows teachers to have. So it does an excellent job. And Seesaw, the teachers have gone through training this week. Vicki Treadway has done additional training. They did training last year, so they're really working to put those pieces together so that it is a robust experience. While it ideally, we could, build 3 planes while we're flying. Maybe the thought a little bit is that, yes, we're moving forward, but the teachers in the conversations that we had were saying we're starting to push them beyond what is reasonable, to ask them in less than a week's time, and I'm just being very pragmatic, and for those of you that don't know me, that's my personality. It's too much to tell them in 4 days that we can get real-time virtual up and running well. It will happen. I don't believe that we're going to be open for the whole year. I imagine that we'll close a wing or a classroom or a teacher will be out or things like that, and we will figure it out, but we need a little bit more time.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Just, I think, providing some of those details and that transparency of what all has been happening in the past week. And I, too, agree that 4 days is not enough time to get through all of that. I mean, 2 weeks is pushing it, let alone 4 days. So I get that.
Ms. Groff?
I just wondered where you were going next.
Well, we need to, we kind of need to settle in on where we're going. I believe, go ahead, John.
Well, if we don't have a motion for anything else, we already have a plan.
Correct.
What we would look for from the board, though, is how to staff the plan. And it matters in the number of students in the classroom. So if we do hire the additional teachers and the one K-12 instructor, the class sizes would go down across the board. If we pulled a teacher, one teacher per grade level, not per grade level, one teacher per building, those grade levels in that building would then be the highest across the district.
I think we should find a way to hire the 5 teachers.
I want to echo, I'm definitely uncomfortable with the inability to social distance across the entire district. And so if hiring is what needs to be done with that, if that's not realistic, while I absolutely want my son in school 5 days a week, if we are not able to hire, then I am more open to the hybrid option. However, I am 100% not comfortable with our inability to social distance in the classrooms across the entire district. So I'm not sure where that falls in with all of this.
I agree that we need to hire the teachers to reduce the class size. We save for a rainy day, and this is the rainy day.
All right, so board, with that, I will look for a motion. We haven't had any we haven't had any real change in thought of how we're going to move forward as far as the educational structure at this point in time. Understanding and appreciating how the elementaries and all our teachers across the district are prepared should something happen that none of us want to see happen as far as schools and closings and all that kind of stuff. So I think we're continuing on the same path there as Mr. Smoker said. So I will entertain a motion to hire the appropriate staff needed to help the class sizes specifically at the elementary level.
May I ask, is that going to come out of reserves or just where?
I'm sorry.
Where's the money come from? Is it coming out of our reserve fund, or do we have that much leeway? Because I am really disappointed that we couldn't come up with an agreement that allowed us more long-term subs.
The agreement for the long-term sub or a teacher is the same cost. It's a bachelor step 1 plus benefits for the individual.
Yeah, but it's just 1 year. The cost wouldn't continue year after year. Right?
The agreement worked out with the association, if we hired the full-time teacher, would be for a 1 year only. So it would not be a continuation year after year. It would be a 1 year.
But we're talking about 4 others though, right? The discussion on the board has been, I thought, to hire more than just that one.
No, we're talking about hiring 5 one-year teachers.
Correct.
That is correct.
All of them would be 1 year.
Yes, not new positions, just 5 one-year teachers.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought we needed.
It's in essence a long-term sub, but we're calling it. It's a one-year
Okay.
teacher.
I was under the impression you were talking about 1 long-term sub and 1
No,
and 4.
Thank you, Mr. Smucker. There's 5 one-year positions plus
5 one-year
a K-12
positions.
teacher.
Yeah, so it's really six teachers that we're hiring for a year.
Right, 5 teachers and 1 contracted through
Understood.
K-12,
Yep.
the company K-12.
Okay.
So I have the same question that Idette does. Does the money come out of our
Yeah.
fund balance, or is there anywhere else that we're going to find it? It's going to come out of our fund balance. We're going to say that it comes out of our fund balance. If we find it later, we'll find it later.
Yes.
All right. So I make a motion that we hire 5 one-year teachers plus 1 K-12 teacher, and we take the funding out of our fund balance. Is that motion correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a second roll call, starting with Phil.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
And aye. All right, thank you.
Do I understand that lacking any other motion, because you can't have a negative motion, this is our only decision this evening?
That is correct.
Thank you.
I would like to make one other comment, if I may.
Yes, absolutely.
So we talked a bit about social distancing in the classrooms, and I understand how difficult that can be. And I would like us, and I heard somebody, I think it was Dr. Cartwright, say we don't have many other spaces in our buildings. And I know we're being as creative as possible, and so I thank you for that, and I would just encourage us to be as creative as possible in that possibility that we could find another area or, I don't know, whatever it takes. But I strongly believe that our administration and our team that's working on this is doing a bang-up job on it, and we really appreciate all the hard work you're doing.
Agreed.
Agreed.
All right, thank you, everyone, for your comments. This is the time in our meeting, again, for public comments. Do we have any further comments from the public?
My name is Chris Murdoch. I live on Impala Drive. And I just want to say thank you for the commitment to actually make that financial sacrifice to make parents a little more comfortable and bring those class sizes down. I think that's a commitment to being responsible and being accountable. Because after all this is done, if things go in some other direction, I'm glad that you've made that action to move forward and bring those teachers in, even though it's for 1 year. That I think that gives some peace in mind to other families out there. So thank you for that decision.
Thank you, sir. Nope. All right. Board, with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.